By late 1968, many of the dreams born in the preceding years are dead, submerged in bitter disillusion. In the years to come, some will hurl themselves headlong into violence. Others will turn their backs on society, preferring an alternative lifestyle. Still others will try to change society through activism in favor of the environment, women's liberation, or gay rights. What did happen during those days of 1968?
Il y a eu une espèce de grande vague de révolte étudiante qui est devenue une grande vague de révolte sociale, qui nous a révélé des défauts structurels de la société française que nous connaissions, mais que nous ne connaissions pas assez, que nous acceptions trop facilement et que nous devons corriger. Mais il y a eu aussi un de ces grands moments d'illusion lyrique où les Français vivent dans l'imaginaire le contraire de l'existence réelle, et il fallait bien qu'il y eût quelques intellectuels pour les ramener sur la terre.
The seeds of civil rights, the peace movement, the women's movement were all planted during this period. And I don't like hearing that it failed. It didn't fail. These are big seeds. Maybe they take hundreds of years for full fruition. And so get your watering can out. Don't complain. You know, we're on the shoulders of everybody else, so let's keep going.
You're going to ask me about what I think of the 60s. I think it was a disaster.
On the University of California campus in Berkeley, traces of the dream persist in 1969.
Let's remember that in the free speech movement, the students did take over buildings and they laid claim to the grounds. The material structures of the university were theirs. They occupied them, they inhabited them. They actually asserted a kind of right of ownership, not as private property, but as public property. This is public university. The public belongs here. We are the public. We are here. The other dimension of it was a broader understanding that market forces were taking over much of life that had been conventionally protected from market forces. What are the public services that ought to be kept separate from private markets and private goods?
Berkeley, April 1969. A group of activists takes over a derelict site belonging to the university that's located not far from Telegraph Avenue, where the students often demonstrate. They call the site People's Park and declare it open to one and all. But Ronald Reagan, governor of California, takes the creation of the park as a leftist challenge to the sacrosanct principle of private property. He sees it as an opportunity to fulfill his campaign promise to crack down on drug-using, communist-sympathizing students. He sends in both the police and the National Guard. Berkeley will soon experience the most violent confrontation in the history of student activism in California. Sheriff Madigan, in charge of operations, would later admit that some of his men, many of whom are Vietnam War veterans, had been overly zealous in attacking the protesters, acting as though they were Viet Cong.
Policeman just shot somebody with a shotgun. They've got shotguns now and they're using them on people. Somebody was just shot.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
The use of shotguns loaded with buckshot leads to the death of a student, James Rector, on May 15, 1969.
By the end of the 60s, I would characterize the mood in the broader circles in which I was involved as a form of almost a collective madness. That is, the Vietnam War had gone on and on and on. Everything that we had done to stop it had failed. Protests became an end in itself. I remember people flocking to Berkeley from all over the country because they wanted to get involved in riots and they wanted to fight in the streets. They didn't really care what it was about. The real problem was that until there was a progressive social movement within the blue-collar section of American society, within the working class, things weren't going to change. There was a whole section of American society that had not been moved, and in fact, were being moved in the opposite direction in reaction to the things that we were engaged in.
And in the end, the new left failed. There was no new left. When we started out, we wanted to let 100 flowers bloom. By the end of the decade, and by 1969, the left was supporting monsters like Fidel Castro. Sadistic monsters is what he is. Supporting the communists in Vietnam, supporting communists all over the place.
In the center of Tokyo, the gigantic Shinjuku train station was the setting for student and counterculture demonstrations in the 60s. Inspired by American protest songs, this is where the Japanese activist founded the folk guerrilla movement. Seiko Oki, the movement's passionaria, still demonstrates in front of the station every Saturday.
今考えると民衆の中に人々の中にその戦う若者たちを見つめる優しさが満ちてた時代でもあります。1968年69年はその当時日本は新聞も雑誌もあらゆるマスコミでベトナム戦争のことがたくさん報じられました。私たちは日常にそれを見ることができました。それから私が住んでいる東京に、特に新宿に、その戦争に日本から飛んでいくタンクローリーを積んだ列車が通ります、新宿駅を。それを見て私たちはその戦争に日本も加担してるって考えるようになりました。だからベトナム戦争反対の声を上げました。私は特にたくさん知ってたわけではないんですけど、戦争反対のその意思表示にフォークソングを歌うということはとてもいいと思いました。フォークゲリラは1969年の2月からです。実際に弾いて活動している仲間たちを見に行きました。その帰りに私はギターを買って帰りの電汽車の中で1曲だけ「友よ」弾けるようになりました。友よ鈍行でしたから一番遅い友よ戦いの炎友よ夜明け前の闇の中で友よ戦いの炎を燃 燃やせそれでさ地下広場が急に通路になったんです、道路に。それで道路で歌を歌って人を止めちゃったので道交法違反。そう、手帳かけられましたね。かけられましたね。でも楽しかったですよ。15年間新宿の街で2時間のスタンディングを続けてずっと見てるんですけど、とても冷たい世の中がデモをしてても角々で立ち止まっている人たちの目線が自分たちに直接関わることなのに考えようとしない、すごく冷たい目線がいっぱいあります世の中に。だから私たちは時代からまだ半世紀も経ってないのに何を忘れてきたのかって私はいつも悲しく思います。
What have we forgotten? Generations pass, but the spirit of protest continues in other forms. Aki Akuda, 25 years old, founded SEALS, Students' Emergency Action for Liberal Democracy, to challenge the government's focus on security. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe wanted to revise the country's pacifist constitution in order to allow the Japanese army to participate in foreign conflicts.
シリーズのコンセプトとしてはまず立憲主義って、憲法っていうものをちゃんと憲法というのは国民との約束なので国民を抜きにして勝手に変えないでほしいと。安倍政権がやろうとしたことって安保法制っていうのはこれまで60年間、憲法上認められていなかったことを政治が勝手に憲法上認められているっていうふうな解釈をして、この法律を作ったと。でそれはやっぱりその立憲主義、国民主権に反しているっていうのが、一つです。それはやっぱそれまでのデモのイメージがすごく悪かった。特に自分たちのデモのイメージっていうのは60年代70年代で止まっていて、すごく過激でなんていうか大学とかを占拠してみたいなイメージが強くて、それは最終的には内ゲバとか仲間内の殺し合いみたいなイメージがついてしまっていて、なんでデモとか社会運動ってなるとみんな行儀良くなって言葉が硬くなって日常の言葉から離れていくんだろうなと思って、それを自分たちの言葉にもう一回置き換えたり、自分たちが普段かっこいいなとか普段聴いてる音楽とかに寄せてったっていう、そういうことですね。なんていうか何度も挑戦しようとするかどうかの方が大事だなと思うんで、あんまり60年代の人たちのことをめちゃくちゃバカにするつもりもないし、過大評価するつもりもないし、ただやっぱ真剣に時代の中で向き合おうとしていた人間と自分も向き合わないといけないなと思います。
Una generazione acciuffa, prende quello che vuole da quella precedente e non dipende dal fatto che la generazione precedente gliela vuole trasmettere, è la generazione successiva che decide di prendere qualcosa o anche niente. Per esempio la generazione successiva alla mia, di tutta la tradizione e l'esperienza rivoluzionaria della mia generazione ha preso niente, cioè l'ha rifiutata in blocco, ma forse senza nemmeno rifiutare, l'ha ignorata in blocco. Dunque non c'è nessuna eredità, non si trasmettono, questo genere di eredità non si trasmette, si prende e basta, qualcuno la prende e basta.
July 1969. Algiers welcomes the first Pan-African Festival, one of the largest cultural events ever held on the continent, with concerts, street theatre, debates and artists from around Africa and the USA. A cultural event, to be sure, but one with powerful revolutionary overtones.
À Alger, ce qui était important, c'est de voir arriver tous ces mouvements qui sont portés par le souffle de la politique, mais aussi de la libération du monde noir en général. Donc pour l'Afrique, c'était le laboratoire certainement des idéologies panafricaines qui allaient se faire par la suite.
La négritude actuelle fixe et coagule à des fins inavouables les théories les plus usées sur les traditions africaines dont elle prétend être le reflet littéraire. En ressassant le passé, en attisant une sensibilité morbide, on vise à faire oublier le présent. La négritude des discours, la négritude d'aujourd'hui permettent à l'heure des grands partages d'avoir de bons nègres.
L'espoir d'une troisième voie était quelque chose de fondamental pour nous les Africains. Mais en même temps, vous ne pouvez pas chercher une troisième voie pendant que, économiquement, vous êtes dépendant de ceux qui ont imposé des idéologies qui, en apparence, sont humanistes, mais en réalité permettent de perpétuer cette hégémonie économique, de sorte que les Africains n'avaient que le ministère de la parole, tandis que, dans la réalité, tout était concocté par ces grandes nations.
Present in Algiers, Eldridge Cleaver and his wife Kathleen, who were both Black Panthers in exile. They fled the United States and COINTELPRO, a covert FBI program aimed at eliminating subversive organizations, including the Black Panthers.
Since the United States of America is the backbone of oppression in the world, the blows that we strike against the empire there will also aid the liberation struggles in Africa, Asia, and Latin America.
The era in which the Black Power movement exploded into the United States was parallel and subsequent to the era in which colonialism in Africa, European colonialism of African peoples, was being eliminated. And so one of the most powerful of those movements was the independence of the Congo. And so for Patrice Lumumba to be seen as a black man, as the head of state of the Congo, and then to be murdered, it was electrifying. And so this notion of black connected to Africa, black connected to power, black connected to pride, exploded after that.
We came to this country as black men and as Africans. It took us 400 years to become Negroes. Understand that. That means that the concept of a black man is one who recognizes his cultural, his historical, and the roots of his great ancestors who were the greatest warriors on the face of this earth, Africans.
The Black Panther Party was an organization that had been created by two activists in California. One was a veteran, Bobby Seale, and the other one was a law student, Huey Newton. And they started this organization in the context of the Black Power movement. They wanted to implement a structure for agitating and organizing for Black Power, and they created a 10-point program. And their first point was, we want power to determine the destiny of our black community. And there were a series of other points. One that was very significant was an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people.
Number 6, we want an end to the robbery by the white racist businessmen of black people and black people in their communities. Number 7, we want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people.
Because the name of the organization was the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. So the first level of activity is preventing police from brutalizing us.
In the areas of the country where the government has proven itself unable or unwilling to defend the Negroes when they are being brutally and unjustly attacked, then the Negroes themselves should take whatever steps necessary to defend themselves.
We want nonviolence, just like Martin Luther King. But to sit and watch ourselves to be slaughtered like our brother, like Huey was shot, etc., we must defend ourselves.
The Black Panther Party identified with Malcolm X, but most of the people who joined the Black Panther Party were actually much younger than him. High school age, college age, draft age, young men who wanted to fight.
I just want to deal with black and black liberation. My scene is picking up my damn gun, and I'm a mother. Have my baby in one hand, my gun in the other, and walking up to some hunky, all hunkies, saying, I'm here, motherfucker, to get what's mine.
The revolution has come. Time to pick up the gun.
Sport leather jackets, black slacks, black shiny shoes, black socks, black gloves, blue shirts, and black berets. The black beret really come from Huey and I one night watching an old movie about the French underground resistance to the Nazis who happened to wear black berets, so we stuck the black beret on. Stop. This organization is rolling.
There is a conspiracy in the land. It's a conspiracy to wipe out, to murder every single Black Panther in America, and to wipe out the Black community as a whole.
Angela Davis, former student of Herbert Marcuse in Frankfurt, philosophy professor, communist, human rights activist, and member of the Black Panthers. She was prosecuted and jailed by the American judicial system.
The FBI, the CIA, and other local police agencies were all determined to eliminate the Black Panther Party. They wanted to destroy it. There were a few people who were killed. There were some setups, and there were gun battles in many places and people getting arrested. It was a very lively, energetic movement.
When do we want justice? When do we want it? Now! Justice! Now! No justice, no peace! No racist police! No justice, no peace! No racist police! Black lives matter!
I wish I could sit here and tell you that the Civil Rights era and the Black Panther era really created concrete change in a way that we can receive it, but truly, they were the architects of the movement as we know it. When I first heard the three words Black Lives Matter, I wanted something with more teeth in it, you know? I wanted something that talked about Black power, something that felt powerful like the Panthers, but when you just say those three words, really, it gets to the heart of the matter. There isn't three words that I feel are more powerful to describe what we're fighting for, which is the inherent value and worth that Black people have.
In Donald Trump's America, Black lives still don't matter for some people.
Ognuno sta per i fatti suoi, non c'è lo spirito rivoluzionario. Non si tratta di evocare il fantasma rivoluzionario che c'è in ognuno, non c'è un fantasma rivoluzionario. Ci sono delle condizioni oggettive e una generazione che le prende, finita quella non c'è.
Woodstock, August 1969. Everybody's heard of it. 3 days of peace, love, and music that were the culmination of the hippie dream.
Woodstock was a mess. It was a disaster. It was supposed to make lots of money. It ultimately did because of the movie, but otherwise it just fell to pieces. I remember being there on the first day and I just hated it. It was hot. There was no water. People were miserable. People were walking around, like this. They were dragging and it was awful.
We are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden, caught in the devil's bargain, and we got to get ourselves.
And yet, I remember standing on the stage on the second day at night and looking out at this crowd, which seemed to, go on forever, and thinking, marijuana! This is what music is all about. You know, there's something in a setting like this that is demanding more of the musicians. And they're creating something that could never be created in any other kind of environment. You know, you need this giant scale.
After the dream of Woodstock, the nightmare of Altamont. A spectator is killed in front of the stage where the Rolling Stones are performing.
At Altamont, it was just, you know, all humanity is supposed to converge on this one spot. And we'll get all these great local bands, and then the Rolling Stones will come on and blow everybody away, which is kind of what happened, but not in the way they imagined. So nobody imagined that all these people who professed that there was a better way and they were acting it out had all the evil, selfish, vicious, hateful impulses of any ordinary human beings. People at Altamont, while it was happening, said, this is the end of the 60s. This is the beginning of something new, and it's going to be really ugly.
Surely the beginning of the end. In 1969, Ron Haberle's photos published in Life magazine reveal the carnage to a stupefied world. My Lai. Nearly 50 years later, I look at that photo again, and what strikes me the most is what's outside the frame. The 20 American soldiers of Charlie Company, 1st Infantry Battalion, who we can't see. Just a few minutes later, on that March 16th, 1968, those soldiers would kill these women and children. And then every inhabitant of My Lai, 500 civilians. In the end of the day, what images that remain of that war are mostly of America's own traumas, or perhaps more generally, the West's wounds.
I think that one of the ways that the world has remembered the Vietnam War has been through American movies. And the ironic thing about these American movies is that they're actually not about the Vietnam War. They're about the American War. That is, they're about how Americans experienced the Vietnam War, which includes then the silencing of Vietnamese people, whose only role in these movies is to be shot, to be killed, to be raped, to be rescued. And if they have anything to say, it's to say thank you to the Americans for rescuing them. And that, of course, is a complete falsification of what it is that the Vietnamese experienced of all sides and how they thought of the war and how they thought of their own experiences. And it's a reason for outrage, at least for me, because I know that this is how the rest of the world then perceives the Vietnamese because of the power of Hollywood.
Apocalypse Now, by Francis Ford Coppola, is probably the Hollywood Vietnam War movie that people remember best. The soundtrack includes the Doors song, The End.
It was a love song, actually. Short little love song. This is the end, beautiful friend. And then in clubs, this long Ride the Snake and the Blue Bus, all this transcendental, ethereal stuff came in improvisation. It became this opus. And it certainly was not a anti-Vietnam War song. But I gotta say, when I saw that footage of the bombing of the villages and the song, This Is the End, boom, what a fantastic translation. It works for that. Go.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end, no safety or surprise, the end, I'll never look into your again.
Die meisten Menschen machen sich doch seltsame Vorstellungen davon, wie Politik wirklich funktioniert und warum sie so funktioniert, wie sie funktioniert. Mittlerweile ist es klar, dass das Machtverhältnis zwischen Wirtschaft und Politik so ist, dass die Wirtschaft sehr, sehr viel mächtiger ist. Aber noch in den 70er Jahren haben die meisten Leute gedacht, die Politik bestimmt über unser Leben und nicht die Wirtschaft.
Zum einen sind für mich die 68er faszinierend gewesen, weil eben unheimlich viel passiert ist, weil sie wirklich eben auch eine Generation bekämpft haben, die natürlich durch den Nationalsozialismus, durch das, was sie sozusagen mitgebracht haben in die Generation, auch schon eine sozusagen schwere Schuld auch mitgebracht haben. Und die Generation der 68er dann wirklich auch gesagt haben, okay, da muss jetzt Schluss mit sein. Wir wollen da jetzt das zu Ende bringen und eben sehr vielfältige Formen gewählt hat.
Breaking with bourgeois lifestyle, engaging in communal living, attacking capitalist society with ridicule. All of that can be found in the actions of the Kommune 1 group, a group that includes the activist Rudi Dutschke, future leader of subversive action, who becomes the person Springer Publishing's populist newspapers love to hate.
Herr Dutschke, Sie demonstrieren nicht nur, Sie provozieren auch. Warum?
Mit Provokationen können wir uns einen öffentlichen Raum schaffen, in den hinein wir unsere Ideen, unsere Wünsche und unsere Bedürfnisse hineinlegen können. Ohne Provokation werden wir überhaupt nicht wahrgenommen. Darum sind die Provokationen unerlässliche Voraussetzung für die Öffentlichkeitsarbeit.
Also in the group, Andreas Baader, with his lovely made-up eyes.
Da kann ich mich daran erinnern, irgendwann kamen Baader, Enslin und die Geschwister Poll und die hatten Lederjacken an, so Motorradlederjacken, also sehr stabile Geräte. Und die hießen zunächst nur die Lederjackenfraktion. Die traten bei uns auf in Frankfurter SDS und sagten, so geht das hier nicht, ihr theoretisiert, ihr seid so ein theoretisches Pack. Ihr müsst mal langsam hier anfangen, was wirklich zu machen, also zur Aktion zu schreiten. Ich habe die nicht gemocht. Da hatten sie noch gar nichts gemacht, kein Kaufhaus angesteckt. Und die hatten dann doch immer mehr Anhänger, auch die diesen Weg gehen wollten.
Andreas Baader, Gudrun Enslin and Holger Mainz met at film school in West Berlin, which goes to show that cinema can lead to anything. After the attempted assassination of Rudi Dutschke, furious demonstrators, including the lawyer Horst Mahler, tried to burn down Springer's headquarters. Mahler's trial will spark extremely violent rioting on Tegeler Weg.
Wenn man nicht über die Millionen Auflagen von Springer-Zeitungen und Illustrierten verfügt, wenn man öffentlich diskutieren will, auf Raumverbote stößt und auf Versammlungsverbote, dann bin ich es allerdings der Ansicht, dass es außerordentlich demokratisch ist, wenn es Leute gibt, die trotz all dieser Verbote die einzige Öffentlichkeit, die dann für sie bleibt, nämlich die der Straße, benutzen und davon öffentlich Gebrauch machen.
Die Kommune oder die Kommunaden hatten ja ein Flugblatt verbreitet, Warehouse Burn, und die forderten dann, ob realsatirisch oder tatsächlich, das ist umstritten gewesen, dass man auch in Berlin das Kaufhaus des Westens und andere Kaufhäuser anzünden solle. Und Andreas Baader gehörte sozusagen am Rand zur Kommune 1 dazu. Das war ein Satellit der Kommune 1. Und die griffen das auf, dieses Motiv. Und dann hat er das zusammen mit Gudrun Enslin, zwei anderen, Torvald Proll und einen namens Söhnlein, dann umgesetzt.
Ulrike Meinhof, editor-in-chief of the newspaper Concret, writes an article in which she salutes the political act of those who have been setting fires in department stores in Frankfurt. Her article introduces the Baader gang to intellectual circles.
Und interessant ist, dass Daniel Cohn-Bendit bei dem Prozess in Frankfurt gegen die Warenhausbrandstifter auftrat und aus dem Publikum nach vorne rief, die gehören zu uns, und reklamierte, das sei ein Teil der Bewegung. Ja? Das sei also als eine Protestveranstaltung oder Aktion zu begreifen gewesen, dass man Bomben in 2 Kaufhäuser an der Frankfurter Zeil damals gelegt hatte. Und die Tatsache, dass nun von diesen 4 2 halt sozusagen das Führungspersonal der RAF dann abgegeben haben, ist dann natürlich nicht zu Unrecht als Vorstufe oder Zwischenstufe zur späteren RAF verstanden worden.
Using a book she's supposedly writing as an excuse, Ulrike manages to organize Baader's escape from prison. From that point on, the group, which is known by its initials RAF for Red Army Faction, goes underground. During 2 years of urban guerrilla warfare, the group terrorizes Germany with bank robberies and attacks that kill over 30 people. In 1972, the main leaders are arrested.
Ich weiß gar nicht, wen meine Eltern weniger mochten, also die RAF oder ihre Opfer. Also die fanden, dass das ein bizarres Schauspiel ist, ja, in dem eine Bande von Mördern eine andere Bande von Verbrechern umbringt. Meine Eltern haben die Methoden der RAF abgelehnt und sie haben auch kein Ziel darin gesehen. Also die wussten nicht, wohin dieses Morden denn überhaupt führen sollte. Also es war ja nicht wie in der Französischen Revolution, wo man gesagt hat, man köpft den König, um anschließend eine Republik zu errichten, sondern hier war ja überhaupt nicht zu erkennen, worin denn überhaupt ein sinnvolles politisches Ziel bestehen sollte.
Incarcerated at the high-security prison in Stammheim, Ulrike Meinhof dies in 1976, and Baader, Enslin and Rasp the following year. All suicides, according to the authorities.
Io sono stato al funerale dei compagni morti, dei compagni uccisi in carcere a Stammheim. E ho ancora un ricordo allucinante della situazione di isolamento e veramente di quanto questi siano stati schiacciati e buttati fuori dalla società. La lotta armata della RAF è qualcosa di profondamente diverso da quello che è avvenuto in Italia. La RAF è un gruppo di lotta armata che si costruisce teoricamente, fondamentalmente sul legame con la Palestina, con i movimenti di liberazione nel mondo terzomondista. È qualcosa che è legato al 68 tedesco, cioè al ripensamento della storia tedesca nella luce del nazismo, nella luce della responsabilità dei padri. Il rapporto con le fabbriche della RAF è nullo.
The years of lead in Italy. This somber period lasts from the late 60s to the 80s. Demonstrations, police repression, attacks, kidnapping, assassinations. A collective loss of innocence.
È però che in Italia dagli anni 60 siano formate dei gruppi che intervenivano direttamente sulle fabbriche, che stabilivano un rapporto diretto tra gli studenti e gli operai. Questa è la cosa che è molto importante, cioè vale a dire che in Italia la lotta sul salario degli operai è diventata immediatamente una lotta per l'allargamento del welfare. La lotta degli studenti sulla scuola è diventata una lotta per la creazione di forme nelle quali studenti e operai potessero studiare assieme, l'allargamento dell'università. Tutte queste sono cose che nascono all'interno del movimento, di questo movimento unito di studenti e di operai.
Yet in 1969, the mobilization is widespread, borne aloft by the alliance of students and the working class, the ultimate condition for revolution.
E poi l'esplosione dell'autunno caldo con la Fiat. Ed è stata un'esplosione nella quale erano presenti militanti che c'erano venuti praticamente da tutta Italia.
The Fiat Mia Fiori factory in Turin is practically a city unto itself, a benevolent factory offering model assembly line work. 50,000 workers in 1969, many from southern Italy.
Si parla di migliaia di militanti che erano alle porte, ecco, delle fabbriche Fiat.
When Fiat heats up, Italy goes on the move. Can be heard at strikes during the hot autumn. Two far-left organizations come into being. Potere Operaio, founded by Tony Negri, and Lotta Continua, one of whose leaders is Eri De Luca.
Appartenevo a una generazione antifascista. Questo ci avevano trasmesso i nostri genitori, quelli che avevano scontato oltre che 20 anni di fascismo, avevano scontato anche la guerra che il fascismo gli aveva scaricato addosso.
In November 1971, trains arrive from all over Italy, bringing anti-fascist groups to a huge rally in Rome. And they have all the good songs.
E quindi c'era una repulsione nei confronti sia ovviamente del fascismo, ma anche di tutto quello che suonava nazionalista. Il 69 per noi è stato un anno decisivo, di passaggio dalla ribellione alla rivoluzione, accettare che insomma si trattava di entrare dentro uno scontro molto più ampio della semplice occasione di rivolta. E nel 69 in Italia la polizia sparava ancora contro degli operai o dei braccianti che manifestavano, era una polizia fascista, insomma. In Italia non c'è stata la epurazione, tutto il personale della polizia, del Ministero degli Interni, della questura era tutto personale fascista, non epurato. Per noi appunto la diversità della Francia, la diversità della Germania, e la risposta che lo Stato ha dato alle lotte è stata Piazza Fontana. Sono le bombe, il terrorismo di Stato.
December 12, 1969. Piazza Fontana in Milan. A bomb explodes in the National Bank for Agriculture. Death toll, 17. Attributed at the time to the anarchists, and now to the far right, the attack's goal was to spark a climax of political violence that would justify an authoritarian regime. This strategy of tension would draw revolutionary groups like the Red Brigades into armed struggle.
Nessuno ha interpretato le bombe di Piazza Fontana come qualche cosa di strano. Erano lo Stato, era il terrorismo di Stato. È chiaro che da quel momento le lotte sono diventate qualche cosa di profondamente diverso, perché hanno fatto riconoscere lo Stato come avversario. E la lotta è diventata una lotta che immediatamente si è portata contro la polizia, si è portata contro il ceto politico, in maniera generalizzata. La lotta è diventata, per alcuni versi, si è consolidata in un comportamento insurrezionale. Erano gruppi interamente clandestini che svolgevano la loro attività facendo delle azioni armate. Era diverso da noi, ma non è che loro erano armati e noi disarmati, o loro erano estremisti e noi riformisti. Era un modo di intendere diversamente l'azione politica necessaria. E però ecco che insomma, quando uno passa il suo tempo a preparare agguati in clandestinità, insomma, ha un rapporto ridotto con la realtà.
During the years of lead, the Red Brigades target politicians, judges, journalists, and industrialists. They kill more than 80 people and commit thousands of attacks.
Un mio approccio anche a un certo tipo di psichiatria che vedeva non tanto il problema di condannare giuridicamente, ma di comprendere un certo tipo di folle disumanità che era quella dei terroristi, che si permettevano di uccidere le persone poiché rappresentavano il simbolo di qualche altra cosa. Ecco, questa forma fredda, razionale e delirante dei terroristi era qualche cosa che io avevo scoperto successivamente.
The 1978 kidnapping and assassination of Aldo Moro, former president of the Italian Council, will be the apogee of the Red Brigade's action. This murder shocks people throughout Italy.
Tutti abbiamo perduto. Abbiamo perduto noi perché siamo stati sconfitti, abbiamo fatto molti anni di prigione, ma ha perduto anche lo Stato, perché un'intera generazione è stata cancellata dalla vita politica. C'è un momento in cui ci sono 30.000 persone in carcere e sono quasi tutte persone che escono da un ambiente politico estremamente vivace, estremamente attivo. Indubbio che sono gli anni che corrispondono alla fine della sinistra. La sinistra finisce in quegli anni. E questa è la cosa che in Italia il 68 ha determinato, la repressione del 68 ha determinato. C'è un vuoto, ha determinato il vuoto.